Green tea latte is a popular drink here in Korea, but because of its light green color, it is sometimes used sarcastically to refer to harmful algal blooms that cover Korea's rivers and waterways in the summer months. Many believe that algal blooms and fish kills have become more common in recent years because of the Four Rivers Restoration Project, a project that is considered one of the biggest failures of the past administration. So what can be done to improve the condition of Korea's rivers? That's the topic we'll be exploring on this week's Upfront.
The Four Rivers Restoration Project, a signature initiative of former President Lee Myung-bak, has become the subject of a probe by the new Moon Jae-in administration. The three-year project, which began in 2008 under former President Lee's watch, carried a price tag of some $19 billion.
대한민국 4대 강은 생태계를 더 보강하고 환경을 살리는 그러한 강으로 태어났습니다.
It involved the construction of 16 weirs on the country's four major rivers, the Hangang, Geumgang, Nakdonggang, and Yeongsangang. However, the project has been a bone of contention since its inception, with some arguing it would prevent droughts and floods and help boost the local economy, and others pointing to its harmful environmental effects. Now, 5 years after the completion of the project, what do Koreans think about it? We asked residents living near the Geumgang.
강물은 흘러야 되는데 막히면 문제가 생긴다고 그렇게 생각해 보고 있습니다.
다 막 오염되고 썩고 그래가지고서 그런 물고기 같은 것도 잡아도 먹지도 못하고 그래 뭐 완전히 하대강은 실패작이지.
그 설치하기 전으로 다시 갔으면 좋겠습니다. 내 생각 같아서.
Upon taking office, President Moon Jae-in ordered a full investigation into the environmental project and called for a release of water stored in 6 weir pools. The weirs built under the project were considered the main culprit for causing algal blooms in the summertime.
녹조 발생 우려가 심한 6개 호부터 상시 개방에 바로 착수하도록 지시하셨습니다.
Controversy surrounding the Four Rivers project is once again making headlines with recent change of government. On this week's Upfront, we shed light on the intensifying dispute involving the project and discuss ways to resolve it.
For today's discussion, we're joined by two experts. Kim Lee-hyung, professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Kongju National University. Welcome. And Rebecca Kim, researcher at the Democracy and Social Movement Institute at Sungkonghoe University. Thanks for joining us. Now, we saw in the video earlier some interviews with the citizens of Kongju, and they talked about some of the changes that they've experienced since the installation of the Kongju barrage. Some positive opinions, but mostly negative opinions. And if we look back, this Four Rivers Restoration Project was dubbed the Green New Deal. It was a huge project that was intended to reduce the risk of floods and droughts and also boost local economies. But the project faced endless controversies from the get-go. What were some of the problems?
So actually the main purpose of Four Rivers project, it was to increase water storage volumes by making some dams there for controlling the flooding and also the drought. But in the case of algae, it can be growth in the condition of excess nutrient concentration and high temperature and also the high sunlight. So for Rivers project, it was performed not for improving water qualities.
So you're saying it wasn't to improve water quality, but to control the volume of water. So
current situation in the Four Rivers, it is algal blooms. So the algae, it can grow by many of affecting parameters like sunlight, temperature. Already I mentioned about that one. But actually, in the case of dam construction, it makes slow water velocities. But slow water velocity, it can increase algal density in the waters. And it's not the main reason of algal blooms. So we cannot conclude that dam construction is the only reason of algal blooms.
Okay, we'll talk more about that in just a bit. Ms. Kim, what do you remember about the Four Rivers project?
The so-called Green New Deal was a smokescreen to cover up the irregularity and illegality of what they called the Four Rivers project. Since what Lee Myung-bak government has called a restoration was actually a total ecocide of the natural river system in South Korea. And the process was full of illegality. Firstly, every rationale fed by the government was a lie. The stories about Korea as a water-scarce country and about the drought-ridden places within this country, the proposals which were prevention of flood and drought, the water quality improvement, the creation of 340,000 jobs, and a more vibrant local economy, etc., all were outright lies from the very beginning, the scam. So what's happening now? The dead river, not functional anymore, dead river and the disconnected river system. There's no river now. When I stood at Kim River just a month ago, immediately I had a severe headache because of this stinking sewage smell. There's no river there. And the river water is now rotten and toxic with blue-green algae, about which Professor Kim just told us about a little bit. And streams, the not flowing rivers lost all their necessary sediments and the energy. And the tributaries got hungrier and drier since they lost the necessary sediments, sand and gravel, which used to be a natural water container. And the groundwater got disconnected and contaminated also. The magnitude of loss of diversity, the loss of natural, cultural, historical heritages are simply holocaustic.
The project has been blamed for damaging the environment instead of improving it. We now have Professor Jay Park on video call. Professor Park was an advisor and a vocal advocate of the project under the Lee Myung-bak administration. He currently teaches in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Now, Professor Park, there are claims that the Four Rivers project ended up damaging the environment and worsening the algal bloom problem. Is there scientific evidence to support these claims?
Scientifically, it doesn't make sense. If you have more water, then ecosystem will be a lot more lively. I will show you some simple demonstration. So this is before the Four River Restoration Project. This is after Four Rivers River Restoration Project. With this project, we are able to have about 1 billion cubic meters of water stored in Four Rivers. Now we have two same contaminants, which is actually my coffee. If I put this one in before Four River Restoration Project, that's the contaminant concentration. Now, if I put this one here, right, then which one will have a better water quality? In addition to that, before farmlands located inside the levees were all removed because they are one of the main pollutant sources. And also, almost 1,300 wastewater treatment plants were built or upgraded, as well as removing non-point sources through wetlands. So I feel like it's strange that algal bloom is considered more serious than drought and flood in Korea. Algal bloom is controlled by temperature, sunlight, and nutrients, including nitrogen and phosphorus. Barrages or dams do not create algae. Algal bloom is not a new phenomenon because it occurs frequently all over the world. Let's look at like Paris, London, Munich, Berlin, Vienna, which is the best city to live in for the past 8 years, followed by Budapest, so on. They have many barrages and dams, as well as locks, and none of the cities is, considering about removing them because of environmental issues.
What would you say about Professor Park's comment that there is no scientific evidence linking the Four Rivers project to algal blooms?
Yeah, mostly the algae growth, algae growing, and algal bloom. That's different definitions. Especially the algae, it can grow. Already Professor Park he mentioned about algae can grow in the condition of high sunlight and temperature, and also nutrient input from forest areas. Yeah, that's the scientific approaches for the algae growings. But in the case of algal density in the water, that's different definitions. Increasing of algal density in the waters, that's because that can be occurred by a slower water velocities by constructing some barrage of a dam. In my opinion, that mostly the nutrient that from the forest area, it can be the main reason of, it can be the primary reason of algal bloom in the rivers. But increasing the algal density, also that slow water velocity, it can be the reason of too. But anyway, right now we can compare the two different dams, like Soyang Dam and also some barrage in a Four Rivers project. In the case of Soyang Dam, there was no any of algal blooms before, and also right now, even though it has very high hydraulic retention time. The reason that there are no any of algal bloom there is because there are no any of pollution sources in forest areas. But in the case of a Four Rivers project, most of them areas in a Four Rivers project, it has really huge areas of agricultural activities and also non-point sources from urbanized areas. So a lot of nutrient, it can be, it is delivering from the forest areas to the rivers. It can be the main reason of algal blooms.
So there may not be a direct link between the Four Rivers project and algal blooms, but you're saying that constructing of dams can actually provide the right conditions for algal.
So yes, actually the algal bloom is really occurred by very complicated process of temperature, sunlight, and nutrient. And also it's possible the slow water velocity can increase algal density.
What kind of scientific evidence do you have from the opponent's point of view?
Algal blooming takes place under three necessary conditions. One, as just Professor Kim just pointed out, one is high temperature and sunlight. Second, contamination sources, so constant intake of the nutrients. And third, three, lots of velocity. All three necessary conditions have to be there.
All three things that Professor Kim mentioned.
Right.
Yes.
So the third condition is met because the dams are there. Okay? The third condition was filled by the scams dams. And the previous governments did nothing to control point and non-point sources of contamination either.
But Professor Park said that there are many dams.
Getting rid of every really important floodplains along the riverside areas.
But Professor Park mentioned that there are many dams and barrages built in major cities around the world. They're not experiencing the same level of problems.
So I'd like to ask him back. Is there any case in any foreign countries where government is pushing ahead unlawfully with the construction of 16 large dams in just 4 years?
So why build so many dams and barrages near major cities? Is this part of a global trend in river management?
Yeah, the river restoration project, that is a global trend in the world to improve water quality, to secure the water resources, and also to prevent many of the natural disasters like flooding and drought. But the problem in our country, the current situation in Korea, it is like weather conditions. In our country, most of the rainfalls that's concentrating on summer season. Mostly more than 80% of our yearly rainfall will be concentrated during summer seasons. But mostly drought season in Korea, there will be the April until the May.
We're in the middle of a severe drought
during that
now.
period, we need a lot of water for agricultural purposes. If we don't manage the water volume in our country, there are no annual water in the very drought season.
This is a very serious problem. We really should consider this a very serious national disaster. Because this toxin in blue-green algae now will eventually be accumulated in our liver through food pyramids, since the water filtration plants are not reliable at all when it comes to this issue. And Nakdong River, think about it, Nakdong River is a source water for 13 million local residents, and South Han River is source water for 25 million Seoul and Gyeonggi residents.
Many experts at the time, we suggested about some amount of the issues, but it didn't consider at the time. It was a problem. Also, all of our scientists like us, we already know about that one. Also, at the time, we recognized and also point out there will be serious problem on water quality and algal bloom in the future after finishing the four rivers restoration project.
So the
but
experts,
at the time, main purpose of the four rivers project, it was already I mentioned, main purpose, securing the water resources for flooding and for preventing the flooding and drought.
So the experts' environmental assessments went unheeded.
The water level is set from the very beginning to only make the four major rivers a waterway, just like a canal. Okay. They didn't build any aqueduct. Right. We cannot deliver any water contained in the four rivers projects dams into anywhere where the water is in a dire need.
Let's talk about how to solve the problem, not focus on what is happening, because there's very little we can do about it. The Moon Jae-in administration has announced that it would launch a probe into the Four Rivers project. Hopefully, we'll get some answers there. It also opened the sluice gates in 6 of the 16 barrages starting on June 1st. Do you think these measures are sufficient to mitigate some of the problems that are seen in these riverside areas?
It's very serious about the drought problem in Korea, especially most of the drought it's occurring in the Chungnam province and Gyeonggi province. But in that area, it's not in a boundary of Four Rivers project. So in the future, waters in Four Rivers, it should be used for other purposes in drought regions by doing some more works.
You mean we need to be able to divert some of the water from the Four Rivers to these
That's right. So in the case, recently in the case of the Boryang Dam, already the storage volumes, it was under the 10%. That means it's already serious water deficiency in that area. So the current government and also the previous government, they decided to connect the Gamgang River with the Boryang Dam by constructing the waterways. So the waters retained in Four Rivers, it can be useful for some other purposes in drought region and also for agricultural purposes.
But then what should happen to the dams and barrages that are built under this $19 billion project? Are you in support of removing these structures altogether?
Well, let's don't get to that very typical sunk cost fallacy. These dams should go. We cannot live with these any longer. We're gonna all
You're in the
get killed.
opinion that they should all be removed.
We are slowly getting killed now. You're just not knowing it, but I see it all the time. Every time I make a field visit, I see it. Every time I listen to these genuine scholars from 대한하천학회 or activists from 환경연합, Korean Environmental Federation, Korean Federation for Environmental Movements, the largest environmental organization in Korea, I feel it. I know it's happening. The $19 billion project you said, the 22 trillion won SREC project, but it is nothing compared to what will be benefited with when these dams are all gone. The natural river will come back, and right now the maintenance cost annually is way higher than the total cost that will be that'll be poured into just removing the dams.
Right.
The benefit of dam right now, it is keeping, it was reduced flooding on downstream areas. And also it retained a lot of waters. And then we can, anyway, in the future, we should find how to use that waters for some ecosystem services.
Well, with summer coming, we can expect these algal blooms to become more rampant. So shouldn't we be looking for a more long-term fundamental solution to these problems?
Yeah, renaturalizing the rivers.
By
That's
removing the dams okay.
Yeah, first removing the dams step by step. The renaturalizing the rivers will prevent flood and drought much, much better and will be a tremendous boon economically also. The renaturalization process is a must for healing ourselves too. This deep trauma, we cannot really approach this problem 100% scientifically because science didn't do anything about the impact when the dams were beginning to be built because science was silent about all these really horrible problems that we are suffering from those dams now. So we should set up a principle which those people who didn't say a word about the impact when this project was kicked off, they should be silent also about the impact that could be occurred in any stages in the process of removing the dams, of the renaturalization of the rivers. I'm telling the audience of Arirang TV that we should approach this issue in multi-dimensional kind of methodology. Because we are suffering so deeply and we have this trauma out of this disastrous so-called national state.
Okay.
This deep cut in our governance system, in our mind, culture, and civilization will be able to heal itself only when our rivers find back their original flow, energy, and functions in their own connected system.
Okay, so Ms. Kim suggests renaturalization of the rivers. Any long-term or fundamental solution that you can suggest?
Securing the water resources is also very important for using during drought seasons. During dry season, already I mentioned, during dry seasons, we need a lot of water for agricultural purposes. So if it's possible, we should keep the dam for using in the future. And then for a fundamental solution, but the big issues in dam problems, it is algal bloom and water quality problems. So in the case of algal bloom and water quality problems, the fundamental solution for that is managing the pollution sources from the watershed areas. So there are many of nutrient sources. The nutrient that's including nitrogen and phosphorus from various pollution sources from land use, from the watershed areas. So right now, the most of the nutrient that's discharging from agricultural activities, and also large from the livestock activities too. And also the urban stormwater runoff, it is including the high concentration of nutrient. So that without that kind of pollution sources, we cannot, even though we remove the dam, it's possible there can be occurred water pollution and also algal blooms. So I can suggest the fundamental solution for managing the pollution sources in the watershed area like this. So low impact development technology should be applied for managing urban stormwater runoff. And then the buffer zone. So most of nitrogen, it will be discharged to the rivers from the agricultural area by subsurface flow. So to remove that kind of nutrient from the subsurface flow, we should construct some of a buffer zone. The buffer zone means you're making some forest areas using the plants. So using photosynthesis of the plant, we can remove the nutrient from the subsurface flow. So just like this, by reducing the nutrient input to the rivers, we can control the water quality and algal blooms.
Turning back the rivers to their natural state will do exactly the same thing.
Well, one of the major problems with the Four Rivers Restoration Project was that it was rushed without thorough preparations or a national consensus. In addressing these Four Rivers issues, we cannot make the same mistake again, so it is imperative that the Moon Jae-in administration make an informed decision based on extensive research and public opinion, because after all, rivers are important ecosystems that are closely connected to people's lives. Thank you very much, Professor Kim and Ms. Kim, for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you.
That's all for this week. Upfront will be back next week. Thanks for watching.